everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to SYT Save Your Tears podcast. I know I've been delaying the episodes. I've been saying that for the past how long, but the fact that you're still listening and the fact that we're growing in number makes me super excited. I am starting to come out of this depressive state, and hence my last episode, Hero Needs Saving, because sometimes we do need saving. We work really hard and try to stay afloat, and sometimes we do need a helping hand every now and then. So congrats to y'all for listening to my episode, and congrats to me to even make one. So here we are. So today's episode, I really want to focus on the three main things. I'm sure you see in the title, it's going to be called awareness, accountability, and affirmation. These three things is something that I live by from a day-to-day basis, and I hope that you guys live by it too. It takes a lot of self-work and obviously, awareness to really dig deep and see your own actions in certain things and not beat yourself up, and actually grow from it and actually affirm that you become a better person and affirm that maybe you did the best thing you could in that certain situation. So applause to y'all. Side note, before we begin to dive into the episode, I do want to mention that I do have an Instagram for Save Your Tears podcast. So when you're listening, please give a follow. I'm going to start posting content. I'm going to start doing reels. I'm going to start picking up the slack because I've been MIA. But regardless of that fact, I want to be consistent. Hence, the self-awareness. You can follow our social media page, which is Save Your Tears Podcast, on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on pretty much every podcasting player. So we're on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music. You can find us anywhere, really. And plus, you can see in our bio within Instagram, we have a link to our website, and you can actually, for business opportunity, inquiries, you can forward your information, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to be guest on the show, or you have a listener advice story to give me, so that way I can give you real, live, actual advice, that'd be great. I need more content, and you guys are the ones who demand it, and I definitely want to hear your voice because it matters. It drives me. It drives me to do more. So with that being said, let's dig right into the episode. Now, I've mentioned that it's about awareness, accountability, and affirmation. These are the three beautiful rules to really dig deep into not only the error of your own way, but also understand and be compassionate towards others in such a line. So what I mean is, obviously everything comes with a grace, right? Not everything that you do is wrong, and not everything that you do is right. And it takes a lot of mental capacity or mental maturity to really see those things. So, for instance, so the first step is awareness. And awareness is being aware of what you've done, aware of your own habits and characteristics and how you handle things in certain situations. So, for instance, I'm going to bring an example, right? So, an awareness about me is that when I feel that I'm losing a friend or I'm losing a partner, I tend to cling. I tend to try to make sure I meant for it not to be lost, correct? I realize that sometimes that's not the best thing possible. So having that awareness and that kind of template, I hope that it gives you a little bit of more of an idea of what to look for when finding your own self-awareness. So for me, it's, sometimes therapy helps. Sometimes having other people give you an opinion. And don't get me wrong, I don't want you to come in here and think that, everything that I do is wrong, what? Because a lot of people would look at an awareness or accountability as a negative thing, I'm in the wrong, I did something wrong to do something, and when it comes to wrong or right, I don't listen to those. You did what's best in that circumstance. Now, what did that hurt someone? Did that hurt you? Did that hurt other people? Like, these are factors that bring awareness. You have to think about it this way. Obviously you have to treat yourself like a priority, but obviously we have to keep in mind that we're not the only priority in our lives. We are human beings. We desire human connection. It is in our psyche, it's in our blood and DNA that we are made to be social creatures. Now, having that awareness will become not only make you a better person, but also be better for other people, people that you want in your life, right? So, for instance, for example, for my awareness, recently I brought up a situation that happened to me and my past friend. We're no longer friends. I actually recently tried to mend the relationship, but it didn't turn the way that I wanted to, and actually went more left. And I'm sorry for my improper grammar. Please bear with me. But you got to keep in mind that, in the situation, I felt that the other person did a lot of things wrong, and then I felt that I did the best that I could to try to mend a relationship between a friend. I felt like a lot of the parties involved could have done things so much different that could resolve this in a mature manner, right? And not everyone reacts the same way that you do. And having that awareness of being like, hey, not everyone's going to think the way that you do, Wendy. Not everyone's going to think, okay, maybe me checking up on you, me making sure that you're okay. Maybe someone takes it as something different. Now, you might probably be saying, okay, but all because they think of something different doesn't mean that it's correct. And you're right about that. Sometimes people take things way too left. For instance, my past friend that I lost recently, I mentioned it in the podcast, and I felt like there was a lot of inconsistency in the friendship in general. It's been like that for the past 3 months. He has a certain level of pattern, so whenever he likes somebody, he tends to neglect his friendships. And for a while now, I have verbally stated that, and he continually disregarded my feelings, and I had enough. And I decided to open up about my feelings. Now, the way that I've done it in a way that was private between my friend and I, which I would normally do, and I feel like looking back, I'm like, okay, that was the right thing to do. Or the best thing to do, this is something between me and my friend, my feelings involved, I want to be honest about how I felt in the friendship because I felt very neglected. And we had a conversation, and he reacted poorly to it. He has feelings too, and he was hurt by it, and his significant other was very upset with me and did not want to be associated with me even after him and I resolved it. And she was really coming very combative, and I felt like it wasn't making the situation better. I felt like no one was trying to resolve anything. I feel like no one was trying to listen to anyone. No one was taking accountability for what they've done. And I feel like a lot of people don't take accountability for what they do because they don't have the self-awareness, the maturity to look at themselves and say, hey, maybe I could have done this differently. Maybe I could have come in this in a less aggressive manner. Maybe I should have said this. Maybe I should have said that. Point is, yes, you could have done a lot of things. And a lot of people would say, it's already done and dead. Like, why are we thinking back? We're thinking back not about the situation anymore. It's about the principle. The principle is, hey, I did this situation like this. Instead, what did I learn from it? Like, what did I learn about myself? I got very emotional when talking to my friend. I got very emotional after speaking with the significant other, and she became very aggressive, and I immediately lashed out on my own friend and say, like, how can you do this to me? Like, how can you choose a person that you just started getting close to opposed to your best friend? We've been through so much. How can you do that? Like, I don't let anyone disrespect the people that I care about. Like, how can you let someone disrespect me? Because loyalty was a big factor. And once I feel that my trust and loyalty was tempered with, I felt incredibly hurt, and I was very angry, and I was just letting loose and not caring about what the significant other cared about. Like, personally, I still don't like her, but in the end of the day, I could have just handled things a little bit maturely, not called her a bitch, not called her anything, and actually was like, you know what, I actually tried to speak with her. I actually tried to come in a manner that was very peaceful, try to say, hey, I wasn't trying to start any issues, but instead, she came in really hot, and I could have just not responded. I could have just let her be the aggressive person that she is, and I could have just been like, hey, take a step back. This person's talking to me like this. I can either walk away, say nothing, or bite the bullet and savor my friendship. These are the options that I could have done, and moving forward, I want to not, the minute someone comes at me in such an aggressive way, to not come at them back. Instead, I should just take a step back, breathe for a second, walk away, and then come into the conversation a different time. So that way I can have a civil conversation without voices being raised, without any disrespect. Even though I wasn't being disrespectful, I knew that I was starting to get very irate. And I knew that once that happened, I needed to take a step back, and I didn't. And knowing now, I want to move those things differently, and that's accountability, and acknowledgement. And you want to affirm that moving forward to yourself. It's, in the end of the day, the situation is done and deaded. Like, there's nothing much to do. I personally do not want to be friends with them anymore, but what I've learned through it is, one, I've learned to let go, believe in some people's colors, and I start to be more self-aware of what I've done. So not cater to my anger. I learned that I lashed out. I learned that I got very emotional about it, which is rightfully so. Hello, it's your feelings. Like, you're allowed to feel. And on top of that, I could have just bit my tongue and said, I tried to talk to her. It wasn't going anywhere. I'm not going to continue to talk unless she comes in a different manner. I should have just never, blew off the handle, right? And that is accountability. That is being self-aware of your own actions. So affirming that from a day-to-day basis, and it's very hard to do when you're in the situation at hand, because it's like, oh, I'm in it. Like, are you actually going to apply that, or are you actually not? And it's very hard to do, but you have to take a step back and think, and not let your emotions get the best out of you, which is very hard. It's very hard. It's very difficult. So that's just one situation, right? Another thing, in therapy, and I hope that you guys are listening, in therapy, I realized that in relationships, my therapist would constantly say in the beginning of my relationship, a very toxic relationship that I was in for a good year, I was always apologetic. I was always trying to avoid every argument. I was in a state of eggshells, and I felt like I couldn't do anything. I felt like I couldn't like the things that I like. I felt like I was judged every moment of the day. I felt like I couldn't confide into people about my feelings and about my mental illness, and it was a very scary time for me at that very moment. And I was so love blinded that I didn't care, and I didn't love myself enough to be like, I'm neglecting my own needs in a relationship. And my therapist, even in situations where I argued with this person, even in situations where I tried to understand the other side, the other party, my therapist would constantly tell me, it's like, Wendy, you have an impending self-awareness. You take it out of your own accord, what you could have done differently, what you could have done or said, or trying to understand other people's feelings in the midst of the situation. So first things first is awareness. Being aware of first of all, in a situation, you're in a real, right now you're dealing with a situation. You have options. What are your options? Do I fly off the handle, curse people out, or do I come into the situation in the best of my ability and talk it out and be mature? What about me gets me triggered? What about me puts me in a state where I want to fly off the handle? What sets that off? What is the basis of why I'm getting so mad? And the basis for me in that situation was I was losing my friend. I felt like I was not enough and they chose something better. And that's something that I've dealt with throughout my life, and that's not true, These are two different things. He's in a relationship. I'm one of his best friends. Like, if she has an issue with that, that's her insecurity. And I need to understand that I wasn't losing someone. And if they were drifting away from me, that was on their own accord. And that just means that the friendship isn't where it used to be. And that's okay. And I don't have to cling on. I don't have to fight for it all the time. I have to fight for my own peace. And with that, what triggers me in that moment is being like, oh, I'm losing someone again. Oh my God, like I always lose somebody and always lose someone, like friendships, relationships. Is it really a loss though? Having the self-awareness to be like, okay, is it really a loss though? Because this friendship has been very neglectful. This friendship, I felt like I wasn't happy. Instead of me clinging on and trying to save for what it was, actually see the reality, see why you're getting so mad. Why am I getting mad? I'm getting mad because I feel like someone's taking me for granted. And it triggers me when they do these actions, right? Now, being aware of that, knowing that it triggers you, what do you do moving forward? One, confide into your friend and say, hey, these actions are hurting me. Or don't say anything and understand that, sometimes people deal with things differently. And does that mean that they're a puzzle or a piece in my life that I should keep in my life? No, you choose what you want to do, right? Now, having accountability for the choice that you do make, So for me, that instance, I take accountability for losing my handle, for letting my feelings get the best out of me, and letting my triggers get control of me. Don't get me wrong. In this situation, I felt like I did everything I could to salvage it, and I did everything I could to be the best friend ever. And it's really about the other person because, to be honest, they have unresolved trauma, they still have voids that need to be filled in, and they still have a lot of insecurities, and they try to fill it by each other, and that's their problem, not my problem anymore. But for me, taking accountability is that, hey, maybe I could have came at this a little differently. I could have just walked away. I could have been like, thank you for your time. Like, thank you for being my friend, but I feel like this isn't working out. Choosing my peace, and taking accountability, being like, I put too much energy. I got myself too angry. I could have done this, and I'm sorry. I should have never cursed them out. I should have never done any of these things. What can I do to be better? You don't even have to say sorry for them. Just realizing, hey, I fucked up in some point in this soap opera, right? An affirmation, and affirm that throughout your life to all the situations. For every situation, there is a basic principle. There's always a basic principle of being like, okay, there is a lesson to be learned, and I need to apply that day-to-day life. And the reason why we keep going through the same situations consistently is because we have not yet learned our lesson. We keep bringing in the situations that we put ourselves into sometimes, and we keep inviting it back because we don't put them boundaries. We don't put what we need to do. And for me, I needed to learn how to let go when people showed me their colors. And once they disturbed my peace, that is my moment to be like, okay, like, I try to speak with you and it didn't go anywhere, and I think it's best that in the most healthiest way that we sever ties. And that's ultimately for you to decide. But what can I do to prevent from falling into these situations again? In the end of the day, you can't really prevent everything 100%. But what you can do is look for the signs. And for that is when someone shows them those actions, that's when you start applying, affirming what you need to do in order for your own peace. So what did we cover today? We covered having self-awareness, having accountability for your own actions. So sometimes, hey, you're in the wrong too. Or sometimes you may have done things that are not the best thing to do. And affirmation, applying to become better, to become a better version of you. I'm consistently, my therapist tells me all the time, Wendy, like, you're consistently looking all three sides of the spectrum. I try to look at it a third perspective. I try to look at it their perspective. I try to look at it my perspective and being like, hey, maybe, they felt this way because of X, Y, and Z, or maybe I made them feel this way, or sometimes they made me feel a certain way that triggered me, everything is circumstantial, right? But what you can do is, you can't change no one. I can't change my friend to wake the heck up and stop being an empty shell of whoever he is with. I can't do that anymore. I've done it for years, and not years, but I've done it too many times. And it's annoying because I'm not a on and off switch for people. So, with that, I had to learn how to let go. I had to learn how to understand that not everyone's in your life to be there, not everyone that you could have done differently, and instead, what do you need to choose is my peace, and I'm going to do that moving forward. And every situation is very circumstantial, and you should apply and find the principle to every situation and put it into your life through awareness, accountability, and affirmations, and affirm that every single day, because that's growth. That's 100% growth. And my therapist commends me for me all the time, which makes me very happy because I'm consistently want to be around people who aren't yes men and tell me when I'm in the wrong, when I'm telling me that what I could have done differently, or tell me that I messed up on this and I could have done this, and understand other people's feelings, but with a line, with a grace, because you can't take someone's feelings 100% way through. You have to also put your feelings into perspective as well. So, with that being said, I hope this episode helped a little bit. Bring a little awareness to yourself, applying that to your life, and looking, ask yourself the questions of being like, why does this thing trigger me? Why does this piss me off? Why does my boyfriend, whenever he does this, it pisses me off? What about it really triggers my past? What about maybe something from your childhood? Maybe it's something that you went through in your relationships in the past, or something of friendships in the past. Or sometimes it's valid and rightfully so to feel the way that you do. Maybe sometimes the way that you react is based upon the past, right? Or friendships, same thing, same rule applies, and, affirming those lessons, affirming that, hey, this is why this is coming from, what it can do to avoid being triggered, what can I do to lighten those triggers, what can I do to heal those triggers, to make me a better person. And that's what we need, that's the goal. So, with that being said, thank you so much for listening to Save Your Tears podcast. I'm back at it again with Wendy Castaneda. You can follow us on Instagram, which is SYT, Save Your Tears podcast, Amazon Music, Spotify, iTunes, so forth. You look it up. You can even follow us on YouTube. And I want to thank you for listening, and thank you for tuning in, even though I've been MIA. And I hope that I helped and saved some tears. So with that being said, good damn bye.